It's now been 3 full seasons since the Green Bay Packers made their picks in the 2022 NFL Draft. And now we finally know out of that draft class which players are steals, which players are still developing, and which are just flat out misses. At the time, the draft class was met with mixed reviews, like every other draft class. Some fans were hyped, some were not. But with 3 years of tape, production, and context, it's time to give a honest regrade of the 2022 draft for the Packers. So today we're going to go player by player, breaking down each pick, what the player has contributed for the Green Bay Packers, and what grade they deserve here in 2025. Guys, if you happen to be a new viewer and want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers this offseason, I'd highly suggest going down and clicking the subscribe button. NFL training camp is right around the corner. The Packers training camp starts in late July, and you won't want to miss any of the content on this channel. We do training camp highlights. We also, a lot of the time, have behind the scenes 11v11 highlights from practices, and this is really the only spot you're going to be able to get that from. So if all that does interest you, go down and click the subscribe button. All right, guys, so let's dive into the regrading of the Green Bay Packers 2022 NFL Draft. Every year draft happens, we go and give it a draft grade before any player takes an NFL snap. And every time I make a video about that, I say you can only really grade a draft about 3 years after it happened. Well, now 3 years have passed, so I thought it would be a good idea to take a look at this draft class today. This 2022 draft class had 11 total picks due to the Devonte Adams trade. And man, this was a good draft class. So let's dive into it. Starting with the first pick, the Packers actually had 2 first-round picks here in this draft. At pick 22, the Packers selected Quay Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. And Quay became an instant starter for this Packers defense and had a very promising rookie season with a total of 121 combined tackles his rookie year. And over the past 3 seasons, Quay Walker has totaled 341 combined tackles. He's also been generally healthy and available. Only had a couple injuries here or there, but generally has been available in all 3 seasons. Now, the one thing about Quay Walker, in my opinion, is that he's been inconsistent at times. Certain games, you really like what you see from Quay, and other games, you're wondering, what in the world is he doing on that defense? Now, we also have to take into effect that Quay had 2 years of Joe Barry, 2 years of a 3-4 scheme. Now we switch to a 4-3 under Jeff Hafley. This past season, he becomes the true Mike linebacker, gets the green dot on his helmet, and it was a learning curve. Earlier in the season, a little bit rough, but as the games went by, the weeks went by, it got better and better for Quay, in my opinion, under this new defense, the new Jeff Hafley defense, and he's the commander of it. He's the one relaying all the calls from Jeff Hafley, getting everyone set up pre-snap, as well as knowing his responsibility each and every play. But overall, I think we are still waiting for that big jump in play. And that's why I think the Packers opted to not accept his 5th-year rookie option, whereas they accepted Devonte Wyatt. I think in the same sense that, yes, he's played a lot of snaps for the Green Bay Packers, had a lot of combined tackles for the Green Bay Packers, but we're still waiting for that next jump to go, okay, this was a good first-round pick by the Green Bay Packers. This is a first-round linebacker, right? You already see it in Edgerrin Cooper, who's a second-round guy where you're going, this guy's going to be a superstar. We have yet to really see that type of analysis from Quay. Yeah, he's been a very solid player. He's been a solid starter for this defense, but it really just hasn't been that next level yet. So for that reason, I'm grading this pick, the first pick in the 2022 draft, a B+. Really good pick overall. It is a first rounder, so you expect a little bit more out of this player, but it wasn't a bad pick by any means, and he still has yet another year here to take that next step up and then maybe earn a second contract from the Green Bay Packers. The next pick in this draft, yet another first rounder, made it pick 28. They selected Devonte Wyatt, defensive lineman out of Georgia. So back-to-back Georgia defenders in this first round by the Green Bay Packers. And Devonte Wyatt has been a solid rotational defensive lineman for the Packers since being drafted. He's played in 47 games, totaling 12 sacks, 47 combined tackles, and 15 tackles for loss. Now, he was injured some in 2024, and that was kind of right after he started to get going. Then he suffered an injury last season. Then he came back and started to heat it up a little bit towards the end of the season. But just like Quay, I think we're all still waiting for that next jump, right? A first-round pick, a first-round defender. We have a ton on this defense, and some of them, like Quay, like Devonte Wyatt, we're waiting for that next jump. But the Packers did accept his fifth-year option. They really like what they see in Devonte Wyatt. And this could be the year he takes over as that true number one defensive lineman over Kenny Clark, who had a down year in 2024. Now, the one thing about Wyatt is he's already 27 years old. He was an old player coming out of the draft, and typically the Packers don't draft older players in the first round, but they had 2 picks in this draft, so they opted for Devonte Wyatt with the second one, and he was 24 years old when drafted. He's already 27, so he should be entering that realm where he could be entering his prime here, and I think the Packers understand that, watch the tape over the past few seasons, accept his fifth-year option, and go, this is going to be our number one guy on the defensive line once we move on from Kenny Clark, and he has shown some good flashes. So overall, I'm going to give a grade of A- for Devonte Wyatt, slightly above Quay Walker just due to the potential. I feel like we've seen more flashes out of Devonte Wyatt. Obviously, a lot more eyes are on someone like a linebacker rather than a defensive lineman. The Packers accepted his fifth-year option, and I think just overall, he definitely could become a force to be reckoned with on this defensive line, and he definitely has shown flashes to become that. So I'm giving an A- for Wyatt here. In the second round, the Packers traded up with the Minnesota Vikings, so they had 3 picks in the top 35 selections in this draft. In the second round, at pick 34, the Packers selected Christian Watson, wide receiver out of North Dakota State. And Watson's been a very explosive player ever since entering the league. And it's been, hit or miss some games. His opening game against the Vikings, a dropped 80-yard touchdown, but he's also had games with like 3 receiving touchdowns. And he's definitely been a very explosive player for the Packers, but he's yet to become a true number one wide receiver, or at least by a statistical standpoint, right? He's been a full-time starter. He had 611 yards and 6 touchdowns his rookie season, which is a very promising rookie year. But overall in 3 seasons has only totaled 1,653 receiving yards, but has totaled 15 touchdowns. So has a ton of touchdowns. It's not a ton of yards. Hasn't hit over that 1,000-yard mark that you kind of expect a receiver drafted in the second round maybe to do by year 2, year 3. Hasn't really happened yet, but he has helped the Packers offense a lot, being that number one deep threat, take the top off of defense, keep the defense honest type of wide receiver. And when Watson is missing, this Packers offense is truly different. And I hope they can replicate what Watson gives with Matthew Golden this year until Watson returns. And speaking of which, Watson has had some injury issues, only played in 9 games in 2023 with a ton of different hamstring issues. And then, of course, the torn ACL last season, week 18, in a pretty much meaningless game. Still annoyed that he was even playing in that game with a knee brace on. So he's still recovering now from this torn ACL. He does look good this offseason. We'll see when he's able to return in 2025, and hopefully he can recover well and return to the same form that he left from, the first 3 seasons in the NFL. So overall, I'm going to give the selection of Christian Watson in the second round a grade of an A-. It would be higher if Watson stayed healthy all 3 years, maybe cracked 800 yards one of the seasons, but that's yet to happen. I still really like the pick, and I still really like what he gives to this Packers offense, and hopefully, like I said, he can recover well. Then in the third round, the Packers go back to the trenches with the 92nd pick, selecting Shawn Ryan, guard from UCLA. Yet another starter out of this draft class. And there's a theme, man. There's a ton of starters to come out of this draft class. Now, we didn't see really any snaps in 2022. Then in 2023, he started to rotate in with Jon Runyan. It was kind of a 50-50 snap split between Runyan and Shawn Ryan. Then, of course, the Packers move on from Runyan because they liked what they saw in Shawn Ryan, and he took over as the starter at right guard in 2024. Now, Jordan Morgan was rotating in with him, just like the Runyan-Ryan thing last season, but then, of course, Morgan got hurt, so Shawn Ryan was really the only starter at right guard after that point. Now, his play has been average, not the best, not the worst, I'd say average, right? I think right now, the spot that we could upgrade is right guard at Shawn Ryan. So whether that becomes full-time Jordan Morgan this season, or next year Anthony Belton steps into that role. If Jordan Morgan moves to left tackle, Shawn Ryan is on the last year of his rookie deal this year. Maybe the Packers retain him as a rotational or just a depth guy overall. We'll see. But overall, it's just been average play. Not bad for a third-round lineman. So for Shawn Ryan, the selection in the third round, I'm giving it a grade of a B. He didn't start year one. He rotated in year two. Full-time starter year three. Hasn't been bad for the Packers, but definitely is a spot that they could upgrade. So I think it's a pretty solid pick. Nothing great, though. Then the Packers had 2 fourth-round selections in this draft, and both picks were very, very good. With the first one at 132, they selected Romeo Douglas, wide receiver out of Nevada. He was the second wide receiver taken in this class after Christian Watson, and yet another starter out of this draft. Now, Dobbs has been a solid number 2 since entering the league, and that's really what you ask of him. He's yet to really rise to that number 1 wide receiver. Maybe he could do so in the absence of Watson early this season, but he's also been a solid go-to target for Jordan Love on a third down with a back shoulder fade or a comeback or a quick slant. He's kind of been that guy for Jordan Love, and he had a really solid rookie season for a 4th-round pick, 425 yards and 3 touchdowns, and since has totaled 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns. The same amount of touchdowns as Watson, but yet more yardage as a 4th-rounder. Now, he has had some injury issues, not as much as Christian Watson, mainly just the concussions this past season. Was also suspended a week for skipping out on practice, so that's something to factor into this. But definitely looking to step up here in 2025 with the absence of Watson, with the drafting of Matthew Golden, and he's on the last year of his rookie deal. So he's really got to play for another contract, whether that be in Green Bay or another team in 2026. But overall, for a 4th-round pick, this is a super solid selection, and he's been a very good wide receiver for a 4th-round guy for the Green Bay Packers. So for all of that, I'm giving this draft pick of Romeo Douglas a grade of an A. Super solid pick, waiting to see what he has to give for 2025. Then the next pick in the 4th round at pick 140 was Zach Tom, offensive lineman out of Wake Forest. Arguably one of the best picks. It is the best pick out of this draft class for the Packers, but arguably one of the best picks in the entire draft class for the NFL in the 2022 draft. Rookie year, Zach Tom took some snaps at left tackle and left guard. At Wake Forest, he was a left tackle and a center, so it made sense. Rookie year, okay, let's see what he can do at left tackle there. But then year 2, he transitioned into a right tackle role, something he didn't play at the college level at all. I think he had like 7 snaps there, and he never looked back. He's been playing at an all-pro level there ever since. I think he's one of the most underrated offensive linemen in the NFL, and I think currently right now, in my opinion, he is a top 3 right tackle in the NFL behind Lane Johnson and Penei Sewell, and he will be paid like it soon. He's commanding over $25 million annually, and I think the Packers will gladly pay that and will become a top 5, top 3 paid right tackle in the NFL. Zach Tom has only allowed 7 sacks in 3 years. Now, of course, only playing about half of the snaps year 1, full-time starter year 2 and year 3, but only allowed 7 sacks and has been the best offensive lineman on the Green Bay Packers for the past 2 seasons. I'm giving this a grade of an A+++. This is the best pick in the entire draft class for the Green Bay Packers, arguably one of the best picks in the entire draft overall. Easily an A+++. He's going to get a next contract, a mega extension, and right now he is the best lineman on the Packers. Then in the 5th round at pick 179, the Packers went edge with Kingsley Enigbar out of South Carolina. Another good middle round pick. I remember this selection happening and going, man, this is a steal. Enigbar was a guy that, I thought was going to go in the 3rd to 4th round. So I thought this was a nice pick by the Packers in the 5th round. And he's been a solid rotational edge rusher since entering the league. Hasn't risen to a real starter role, even though last year he was second in total snaps at edge for the Green Bay Packers. He's totaled 9.5 sacks and 107 combined tackles over the 3 seasons. And in my opinion, he has been a pretty inconsistent player. Kind of similar to Quay Walker, where some games you're like, wow, what a game by Enigbar, and then other games you're sitting there wondering what in the world he's doing on this defense. Now, again, he did see the second most snaps behind Rashawn Gary last season, but the Packers' pass rush was also very lackluster. And I think a lot of the reason was because because we didn't have other players to play over Kingsley Enigbar. Lucas Van Ness had an injured hand, didn't step up. Rashawn Gary, kind of a down season. Overall, the Packers pass rush wasn't good in 2024, but overall, I still think this is a very good value pick for the 5th round, a guy that, came in and pretty much started to contribute right away. I'm giving this a grade of a B+. He's on the last year of his deal. He could be a trade away candidate, but overall for a 5th round pick, I'm happy with the selection, and he always gives you good, solid depth, and he knows what he's doing for the most part on the defense, so for me, it's a B+. Now we skip all the way to the 7th round, where the Packers had 4 total picks. We'll try to run through these pretty quick, as 3 of them not great picks, but that's the 7th round for you. For the first one in the 7th round at 228, the Packers went Tariq Carpenter, safety / linebacker out of Georgia Tech. Again, just a 7th round pick, and this one never really worked out. A player that was really stuck between 2 positions, kind of that tweener role of, is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? I wasn't huge on this pick when it happened. There's other players on the board that I liked more than him at safety, at linebacker, and he only played in 16 defensive snaps for the Packers in 2 years before being cut, and wasn't even a good special team player, which a lot of people thought that's what he would be for the Packers. He was never that. So I'm giving the Tariq Carpenter selection a grade of an F. Again, it's a 7th round. It doesn't hold much volume on my overall grade for this draft, but it was just a simple miss in the 7th round. Then we moved to pick 234, John Ford, defensive lineman out of Miami. Never saw any in-season action for the Packers, yet I feel like every preseason he had this hype behind him where, like, this guy's going to make the roster. He's going to become a nose tackle, run-stuffing style defensive lineman. Never amounted to anything in Green Bay. I believe he's in Chicago now and played pretty poorly last season. Another miss here in the 7th. It's getting another grade of an F. It happens. It's the 7th round. Then we move to Rasheed Walker at 249. Left tackle out of Penn State. Now here is an absolute home run of a pick in the 7th round, where the first 2 were absolute misses. This was one of the best steals in the entire draft for the NFL in 2022. You had another full-time starter here in this draft. Now he didn't play his rookie year. It was pretty much a redshirt season, but became the full-time left tackle in 2023. And honestly, I had no idea why Walker fell to the 7th round. When this draft was happening and Walker continued to fall and fall and fall, I mean, some boards had him in like the 2nd to 3rd round. So I don't know why he fell to the 7th, but I'm glad the Packers selected him. He's allowed 9 sacks the past 2 years, and this is likely his last year in Green Bay. I talk about this a lot on my channel. He's going to command Dan more money, and the Packers aren't going to be able to pay that, or they won't want to pay that after giving money to Zach Tom, maybe some more guarantees to Elton Jenkins. Plus, they drafted Jordan Morgan to be the future at left tackle, and they selected yet another potential tackle in the 2nd round this season with Anthony Belton. But still a very tremendous pick here for being a 7th round pick. For that reason, it's an A+. Not a doubt that this is an A+ coming out of the 7th round. You get a left tackle that starts for your offense. Now, yeah, could the Packers upgrade at left tackle? For sure. But for a 7th round pick, becoming a 2-year full-time left tackle and being above league average at it, that's a phenomenal pick, so that's an A+. Then the final pick in this draft class at 258 was Samori Toure, wide receiver out of Nebraska. Man, if you guys remember a few years ago on this channel, Toure, I was super high on in this channel. He was pretty much what Wicks is now to me. Now, I like Wicks a lot better than Toure. I think he's a lot better, obviously, but if you guys remember him on this channel, he was a receiver that I had high hopes for, and he never really amounted to much, but he did see the field some and did get some opportunity, just never really turned it into much, but that is still decent for a 7th round pick. He totaled 160 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, that sweet touchdown against the Buffalo Bills, if you guys remember that. Not awful for a 7th round receiver. I believe he went to Chicago for a little bit. I don't know if he's even playing, or he might be on a practice squad, but nothing special for a 7th round wide receiver. He's a 3rd receiver taken in this class. Saw some offensive snaps. Never really amounted into a special team player, so I'm giving this a D+. Really like Toure coming out, but just never really amounted in anything. So the Green Bay Packers overall draft grade for 2022, I'm being honest, this is an A+ draft. I think it's one of the best drafts coming out of this 2022 draft when you look around the league. We're talking about 7 eventual starters from an 11-pick class. That's absolutely unreal. And there's really only 3 misses in this draft class, and they're all 7th rounders, which happens. You have 4 7th rounders. You know, the fact that you even have 1 full-time starter coming out of those 4, that's awesome. Enigbar and Wyatt, really the only guys that haven't become full-time starters yet, but they're still really good rotational guys and good depth, and Wyatt can become that this year. Your only misses are in the 7th round. I mean, that's phenomenal. And at least 4 of these players out of these draft class should see a second contract in Green Bay, and that's the low amount. It could be more players seeing second contracts here in Green Bay. There's just a few I just don't see happening. Zach Tom, easily the best pick for this Packers draft class. Walker, the steal out of this draft class, and a lot of solid starter quality picks in between. And overall, I honestly think this is Brian Gutekunst's best draft as the Packers GM. I want to know your thoughts down in the comments below. What would you grade this draft class overall? You can either list your players and grade or just give an overall grade down below. And do you believe that this was Gutekunst's best draft as Packers GM? But I really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. If you could leave a like down below, supports the channel a ton. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.